Thanks for joining. We're at the top of the hour. People are still filing in, so I'm going to give our attendees another minute or so to join. See a lot of familiar names filing in. It's good to see everybody. We're at 1 minute past the hour. I think we'll get moving here. As many of our current and prospective partners know, last year we undertook an ambitious and demanding initiative called Tonic Accelerate. Tonic Accelerate encompassed an incredibly broad range of features, functionality, and integrations, and I'm thrilled to say that is now complete. Today, we're going to take you on a journey through the updated Tonic point of sale, as well as our new back of house. I'll kick it off with a feature we're really excited about. Having built many menus in my time, I've always envisioned an easier way. With our bulk uploader tool, that vision is now reality. I'm now going to pass it over to Adam Pinion for a dive into that tool. Adam?
Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about a new feature we've introduced, or an improvement on an old existing feature for uploading bulk data. The idea here is that there's a lot of merchants who have data that is in some form, like a spreadsheet, for instance, and they would very conveniently like to upload that data into the back of house rather than to have to manually input all of it piece by piece, one by one. And so this tool seeks to achieve that and to enable that for them. We did design and construct this tool with, of course, the merchant in mind for the scenario that I just explained, but we also introduced a new angle for the sales side of things, as in being able to use this in a demonstration very easily and conveniently to show a merchant how quickly their data can be uploaded. And so that's a new piece that that Tonic previously really didn't exploit, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as I wind through this. So let's go through a couple scenarios here. To access the bulk upload section, I'm just clicking into the Tonic back of house. I'm clicking on data and then bulk upload. What we have here is the landing page for this feature. There's a couple of very simple interfaces here. One is to download a blank template. The second one is to download a sample template. These are meant to help a merchant format data that they might have to be easily uploaded to Tonic. So the sample just gives them an idea of what things should look like, what the blank would look like when they fill it out. And the blank, of course, is just blank. It's for their data. So we really want merchants kind of steered in this direction, to use this blank template. And if they have a spreadsheet with all of their modifiers and all of their items in it, they can simply just copy and paste data from one spreadsheet into this blank template. So it's very easy to use. But we want them to use this ideally just because there's some tools that we've included that I'll show you in a moment that are really built around these templates, and they recognize these templates and just help this process to be even smoother. That said, they don't have to use these templates. They can upload a spreadsheet of their own liking, a custom spreadsheet, and I'll go through that scenario as well. So let's start with a blank template that's been filled out a little bit and just show you how that could be uploaded to Tonic pretty quickly and easily. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this upload bulk data option. And I'm going to browse to a blank template here that I have. And that's going to upload to the Tonic back of house. What I'm seeing now is the uploaded file page, and I can see my named file here. And then these are all of the attributes on the left that I'm able to use in that blank template. Menu configuration, modifiers, modifier sets, sales groups, items, and then we've even gotten into labor with staff and roles. So I can configure my spreadsheet with all of these items and upload all of that. And let me just show you quickly what that looks like. So here's that spreadsheet that I just uploaded. And so I have couple of menu, couple of category names. I have some modifiers. I have an item here. I have some sales groups. And so that's all part of what I've uploaded. So let's go through this sort of quick and easy process here. So let's say that I've filled that spreadsheet out, I've filled that template out diligently and to my liking, and I simply just want to quickly upload it. I just want to get the data in there. I can use these prompts down here at the lower left-hand corner for auto mapping, right? In this case, I want to auto map all. I want to auto map all of these destinations, right? And I want to auto map all of my data to these destinations. So I'm going to go ahead and click on auto map all. Immediately I see an auto mapping successful message there, and now I can simply go to save all. When I go to save all, it's going to take a moment to process, but not too long at all. And now you can see I have these little orange markers here. And what that's doing is it's just going to put me through a quick process of making sure that I want to upload the things that I have, that I'm certain about this, right, before fully committing it to the back of house. And I get a couple of tools here that I want to point out that are really helpful. So I can go ahead and I can view existing data, right? So if I click on view existing data for my menu configuration, I can see the existing category names that might already be in my back of house, right? I can look at that. I can also look at what I plan to upload. So what's on my spreadsheet? And I can click on this preview button over here, and that's going to show me those items that were on that uploaded spreadsheet. So I'm able to go through for each of these, and I can look if I feel the need, I can look and see and make sure that I am uploading what I want to upload. I can preview, I can look at my existing data, and I can do all of that. If I'm happy with all that and I move forward, I can just simply click, again, using this easy prompt here, apply to all. I can click keep existing and add new. So I'm going to keep all of the existing data that I have in the back of house, and I'm just going to add these new items that are on that spreadsheet template. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. This is going to take just a couple of seconds to load here. And then I can show you some of those items that are now in the back of house. And I can configure those items to be part of my menu for ordering in the front of house. And there is a little time lapse that will take, and there we go. So that didn't take too long at all. And now my data has been uploaded. I get this message here, data uploaded successfully. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hop out of the bulk upload feature, and I'm going to go into the back of house so I can show you some of that data. So I'm going to go to configuration, and let's see, let's just go to modifiers, for instance, and we can look at modifiers, and I can see and there's the couple of items that I had for modifiers on that spreadsheet, onions for demo and tomatoes for demo. And just to confirm with you all, I'm going to go back here and we'll look at that original spreadsheet, and there are those items. So that was very quickly done. Now that has been done for all of those items. So everything that was in the spreadsheet, from any staff to items to modifiers, modifier sets, etc., all of that has been quickly, in about, what was that, maybe 10 seconds, uploaded to the back of house. Now let's go ahead and go through a different scenario. So I'm going to upload a different database this time. I'm going to use this demo2 blank template. And I'm not going to use those apply to all features. And what this is going to do is, what I want to expose here is the ability to show a little bit of discretion, right? So as in, yeah, I have a spreadsheet. There's a lot of data on there. I uploaded the whole thing, but I don't know that I want everything just getting uploaded to back of house. Some of it's not quite fine-tuned. Maybe I don't have some prices where I want them. Maybe I just haven't done all of my due diligence, right? So in this case, I want to be very selective. I want to be discreet. So I can do that very simply here. So let's say all I want to upload right now are items. I'm going to go ahead and click on items, and that's going to change my configuration table to allow me to just set up my items. And this will display. And now I can choose my source tab from that spreadsheet, and I can say I just want to work with items. And then I can go ahead and I can select my auto map feature here for these items, right? And I'm going to go ahead and select auto map, and that's going to populate all of the items that I have on that spreadsheet for these various destination attributes in Tonic back of house. So having done that, and that's all I want to do from this spreadsheet. I have other tabs on there. I have lots of other data, but I only want to upload items, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and click save within this modal. It's going to save. It's going to give me that same option that we saw before, only this is not for everything, right? This is just for items. So in this case, I do, and again, I can preview, I can view existing data. I'm able to use those tools. In this case, I want to keep the existing data that I have in back of house and go ahead and add the new items. So I'll click on that. Immediately, I have data uploaded successfully. And now let's go ahead and take a look. So the spreadsheet that I was using was the demo 2. I was using items. I had a turkey sub item for demo 2. And so let's just pop over to our back of house. And we're going to look at items. And oops, and there's my turkey sub for demo 2, pardon me, now in the back of house, and I can price that, make it active, and that can become part of my front of house ordering. All right, I want to go through one more scenario. So when we created bulk upload, we thought, you know, in addition to making it easy, as I just showed you, to sort of auto map all, making it easy to show some discretion and kind of pick and choose, we also wanted to provide for a custom spreadsheet, a sort of do-it-yourself type of approach. And so I want to show that to you. So we're going to go ahead and upload a custom data there it is. And I'm going to upload that spreadsheet. Let me show you what this looks like. So this is just very simple. This is not formatted in any way like those Tonic templates that we were working with previously. So I have a few modifiers here. I have some items, some mods, some staff. Let's go ahead and work with modifiers just because I have a pretty decent list there. So let's say that I've loaded now a custom spreadsheet, and you can see some things are different on this page now. The auto map tools are gone. I do not have the option to auto map, and that's because I'm not using those Tonic templates anymore. I have my own spreadsheet. I'm doing this myself. And so Tonic will allow you to do that, but we did have to take away the auto mapping tools just for to account for the variances that could be introduced with a custom spreadsheet. So I don't have those tools to auto map, but I can very easily map things myself, manually map. So in this case, what I want to work with from that spreadsheet are my modifiers. So I'm going to click on modifiers. I'm going to choose my correct source tab here. We're going to go to modifiers, and I'm going to go to my modifier name. I want to use the modifiers for the demo. And you can see here, just for modifiers and for sake of sort of efficiency in this demo, I only have this one required field here. So I'm just going to leave these fields blank. So I've gone ahead and mapped manually. Again, I can preview. I can view existing data. In this case, I will just click save. I'm going to get that same message that allows me to keep existing and add new, or replace all, or skip entirely. In this case, I just want to go ahead and keep the existing. I will keep existing. The data is uploaded successfully. And now let's go ahead and look at our modifiers in the back of house and see if we've uploaded from our custom spreadsheet. So we're going to go out here to configuration, and we're going to go to modifiers, and I had ranch for demo, blue cheese for demo. So let's go ahead and look for those. And here's my ranch for demo, blue cheese for demo. All of those items are now in my back of house, bearing in mind that was from a custom spreadsheet. So what I want to do now is just speak briefly about the bulk upload tool and just how this could be used for sales. So we've all been in a scenario where a merchant might be interested in the point of sale system in Tonic, for instance, but they've got an existing system. All of their data is programmed. Oh gosh, moving everything over. What an inconvenience, and I think that this tool can be used to alleviate and really mitigate that perceived inconvenience. So, in that sales prospecting scenario, if I just asked a merchant, well, why don't you send me, if you have everything in a spreadsheet, a custom spreadsheet, go ahead and send that to me. And they can send that to me and I can quickly upload it into this and show them, within really a moment or two, their data in the Tonic back of house. So I really believe that this tool could be used in those sales scenarios, for those prospecting situations, for those kind of impatient or even perhaps a little bit disinterested merchants who don't think that they have the time to do this. First of all, you can show them this very quickly and they will realize that, yeah, this is going to save me a lot of time. It only took me 2 minutes to watch you do it. I can do this with my own data. And, in a sales scenario, that's very powerful to just be able to move data around as quickly as this does and to upload that to the back of house, to have that data be live in the system almost immediately. Very powerful. Really a leading angle in a lot of demos and a lot of situations. So I wanted to close with that. I think it's an important part to consider. And that takes us through, I believe, the all of what I wanted to talk about with bulk upload today. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. I know our partners will be grateful to have a tool that will save them time and minimize input errors. Our initial feedback from one reseller is that this will help them streamline one of the most tedious parts of every project and allow them to scale the number of installations they can do every month. Now I'm going to pass it over to Tony to take us through the new Tonic back of house. Tony?
All right, thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. So yeah, let's dive into the new Tonic back of house. All right, so what we're looking at here is our new updated Tonic back of house. So what we're going to cover today, I'm going to go through the entire menu section and cover some of the updates that we made, some of the enhancements that we made. So we can make it a little bit of a better process and more of a streamlined process for building a menu and configuring an existing menu. And then we're going to take a deep dive into Premodifiers. So yeah, let's get started. What we're looking at right here is the landing page or dashboard of our new Tonic back of house. So to access everything related to the menu, click on configuration in the top nav bar here. And the far left column underneath menu is where you can build out and configure a new menu, your existing menu. Basically everything menu related is really underneath this column. So we're going to start with menu configuration. So once you access this page, this is kind of the very beginning, or the end result, I should say, of your menu. So these are a collection of all your menu categories. So we did a lot to this page, and we wanted to enhance this just to make the user experience faster, more modernized, and then also just more approachable for maybe a new user who's building a menu for the first time. But at the same time, we maintained a lot of existing functionality. So existing customers are used to this. They're still going to be familiar with it when they come in here. So there'll be some new stuff, but how you build things will be somewhat familiar to them as well. So we wanted to find that kind of sweet spot, and we definitely found it on this menu category screen. So kind of going over this, everything that you're seeing here, the first thing that I'll call out is we implemented menu categories in a more modern, updated card view. So all of your menu categories are listed here in cards. And again, this kind of follows some of the UI UX design approaches that we're seeing within the market, not just in point of sale, but web software overall. So we wanted to implement something like that. So we give that familiar approach to, so maybe somebody's using a different platform, and whether it's something not even point of sale related, they're able to come in here and see some familiarity with this modern approach. So starting out on the menu category screen, all of the menu categories are listed here, but we also included the ability to increase what we call pagination. So items that can fit on one screen. So if you have a really, really large menu, you can do one of two things. You can either select this option and showcase everything at once. So you can kind of scroll down and look at everything, or you can limit that to only 20 cards per page. And then you can just use pagination to page over. A lot of the things here, as far as our approach that we included, was a big focus was feature parity. Again, we wanted to make sure that we are bringing in that existing functionality that our customers know and love, so it's still available in V3. So some of those things are like a menu export. So you have the ability to export all of your menu categories here. We also have the ability to rearrange the sort order, both from a visual standpoint within the back of house, but then also relative to the front of house. Which we'll kind of dive into that a little bit. And then, of course, the ability to create a new menu category. Some of the other small enhancements, but very, very impactful that we made was across the menu category screen, as well as the rest of the screens that you'll see, is we included a type ahead search feature. And essentially what that allows a user to do is if you do have a lot of menu categories or anything else within any of the other subsections, as you begin typing in to find whatever it is you're looking for, it'll automatically start narrowing things down. So if I were to type in here pizza, you can see how that type ahead search functionality allows you to narrow down your search field so you can find what it is you're looking for much faster. So we implemented that, and you'll see that across the board on every single page throughout the new back of house. We also added the ability here for a quick filter as a default filter to be able to select whether or not you're looking for menu categories that are available for both in-store online ordering as well as your favorites. So a collection of everything kind of displayed at once. But again, if somebody is editing a lot of menu categories for online ordering, or maybe just for their in-store, they have a lot of specials that are only in-store, they can select just show me the menu categories that are available in-store, and it'll filter those out. Again, just for faster access to the menu category or the menu in which you're looking to edit. So we added that functionality here as well. And then, of course, the ability to filter by favorites, which will kind of show you how to do that at the menu category level. So now that we kind of covered the top level piece, let's go into this first piece right here for rearrange. So obviously in a real world environment, there's going to be a lot of menu categories, and, assuming all of them are available in store at all times, for our customers and restaurant users, muscle memory is really important, right? But also with that is when you're using the front of house, it's the ability to sort things appropriately to where if there's a very common menu, like maybe it's a cocktail menu, right? Or, you're a custom sandwich shop and you have a lot of sandwiches, and you always want that to be the first thing that the server or whoever is placing the order in the system sees. We included the ability to rearrange the sort order. So to do that, you can select this rearrange option. And what it basically does is collapse all of the menu categories and puts them into this view where you can easily kind of drag and drop the sort order kind of from left to right. And you'll see the numerical value for each one of them that tells you what that sort order is going to be from left to right in the front of house. And then once you update that sort order, we also included a publish option. So you can publish that rearrangement that you do make after you set that rearrange. So that's a little bit about rearranging the sort order. And then let's get into each menu category itself so you can see how to configure them and start building those out. So the first option within here is this 3-dot menu. And this gives you the ability to access the schedule. So if you wanted to create a schedule for this menu item, you can create it, or this category, you could create that schedule, whether it's a weekly schedule or maybe related to an event. That functionality we already had in Tonic, so we incorporated that into the V3. And then also the ability to mark some menu category as a favorite. Again, if it's something that you edit frequently, or you're making updates to, or you need to change its availability a lot, this would apply to that filter at the top, right? So you could filter to your favorites, and you can mark that category as a favorite by selecting the heart icon. And then the ability to remove or delete a menu category. So those are all available within this 3-dot menu. And then within the card itself, one of the other things that we wanted to do, again, for just quick visibility, is we wanted to showcase some statuses and some current configurations that could be really critical for a restaurateur, a manager, whoever is an owner, whoever's in the back of house, to be able to see at an upfront level. So some of those things are whether or not it's current status, if it's available or not. Maybe you've made this category unavailable. Where it's available, so in store or online ordering or both. The schedule, right? So it'll showcase the schedule here in a real-time view, and then also the areas that this is assigned to. So whether or not it's assigned to, a banquet hall, it's a specific menu category for a banquet room or a private dining room or whatnot. It just gives you that visibility really up front here without having to kind of dive into the menu category to get that information. But speaking of diving into the menu category, let's go ahead and do that with any one of these. We'll just select the first one here. If you select this eye icon, what we implemented was the ability to open up the menu category itself in what we call a modal, or what many refer to as a pop-up. But we wanted to make sure that that was dynamic. So whenever you'll see as we go through the back of house, whenever we have these modals that display, depending on the content that's within that modal, it scales dynamically. So if there's a lot of content, the modal is going to take up a little more of the screen. If there's minimal, it's going to take up less of the screen. And that was all by design. Again, just depending on the complexity of what is in here, we wanted to make sure that we had a really elegant display for that. So by looking at a menu category and editing one, you can still access some of those other features more as you dive into it that you could at the top level. So you saw the schedule option. So you can actually do that in the 3-dot menu if you just want to do that quickly, or you can do it in this edit or add new menu category modal itself by selecting the schedule option here. To edit the menu category, if you wanted to edit the name, there's an edit icon here, which allows you to edit the top level name of the category, add new areas to the category, things like that. Probably not going to happen that often, but we still need the ability for folks to be able to edit anything in which they create. And then we have some availability toggles here. And the beauty of this is what we wanted to do, and you'll also see this as I go throughout the demo, is certain things that may be edited more frequently than others, right? As I mentioned, editing the name of the category, probably not something that's going to happen a lot. But maybe it's availability, right? That may need to get edited more. So we wanted to introduce and limit the amount of clicks and introduced what we call inline editing. And you'll see that across the board as I go through the rest of the menu. But for certain things like availability, you're able to not have to go into a separate edit screen or a separate edit modal. You're able to do that directly in line. And we took that concept from a lot of things that was originally built into Tonic's first back of house, but also, again, looking at some of the other systems in there and the extensive UI UX research we did. And it really just allows the user to make those changes more quickly. And then underneath that is where you really kind of get into the nuts and bolts of building out your menu category. So whether or not you want to assign items to that category, whether or not you want to build or edit a section within that category, or configure any additional charges at the category, section, items, or side level within there. Again, these are all features that we've had, and the repository of features we've had within Tonic before, and we had to make sure we want to include all those there so every user has the flexibility to be able to configure their menu category or their menu in general any way they wish. So going back to the item screen here, this is where you would assign an item to a menu category. So Tonic itself, what we call global items is how things are configured. So, and we'll cover that when we go into the items section, but this is where you more assign an item because items are globally created in the back of house. And that allows a user to assign those items to a menu category and define that pricing accordingly. And it's really flexible because it allows you to have, let's say you have one item and you want it to apply to multiple menu categories. Maybe it has a different price. So the price of an item maybe in the dinner menu category varies from the one in the lunch category. With that global item concept, that's where we have this workflow where you assign those items. And we wanted to maintain that in V3 because that's a really, really impactful way and an easy way to build out the menu. So we maintained that feature set as we built out our V3, is what we call it, or our new back of house platform. So this is where you would assign those items. But there's also there's an extra layer to an item, and there's sometimes a difference between those, between a regular item and a combo item. So we wanted to introduce the ability for a user when they're building out that menu category and doing that assignment is to really be able to select and identify the difference between a regular item and a combo item. Because a combo item has a lot more layers of configuration underneath it. And we wanted to really make that up front so users could see the difference between a combo item and an item, or how many combo items versus how many regular items. And so what we did there is we added a filter here. So just for visibility, a user can default to all, but they can say, well, just show me what items I can see or what combo items I can see. Again, just more advanced filtering. And then for adding a new item or adding a new combo item, you can do that right here in 2 separate buttons. So if you wanted to add a new item, one of the things that we did, again, I mentioned inline editing, right? We didn't want to introduce a new, modal or a new pop-up. We wanted to make this as fast as possible. So what we did was we added the ability for inline editing. So the moment you want to add something to this menu category, you'll notice here that it automatically created this new line in this row. And from here, it defaults it to the next sort order, which we'll get into in a minute. And then all of the functionality that you can currently do within Tonic's existing back-of-house for configuring that item. So things like, whether it's a shortcut or part of your fast bar, obviously selecting that item from the items list, choosing any of the associated prompts that you might want to prompt in the front of house when a user selects that item. Whether the sides and how many with that item, it's assignment to sides, as well as configuring that price, and then some of the UI color, foreground, background, online availability, etc. So we added that in line. So when a user's building a menu from scratch, it's super fast to be able to go through and just add a new item, add a new item, add a new item, and it all follows this inline approach. So for adding a new combo item, it's slightly different because there's more attributes around a combo item. So again, talking about the scale, the responsive scaling with the modal. So when you want to add a new combo item, this is where you can go in and you can add the name of the combo item, the pricing, all of those things that we currently support, but also to be able to build what that combo item includes by default, but then as well as selectable items. And you can access all those from the drop-down menu here. And by default, we wanted to add in some of those more detailed information you may want to add to this combo item. So things like, updating an image for the terminal, what is displayed in the front of house versus online ordering, a description, some loyalty points, things like that. These are all of the item attributes that we consider more of an advanced item attribute that for a combo item that typically exist at the item level for a non-combo item. So we wanted to add that here so it's a lot faster for a user to be able to configure that, and they don't have to go to a subsection to set that information for combo items. They can do it all as they build and assign a new combo item directly into a menu category. So that's a little bit about how you configure the items for a menu category. Here is where you can access your sections. So whether or not you wanted to split out your menu category with multiple sections or create additional sections, you can do that all within what we call this sub tab here. We have this option that we implemented called Manage Sections. And what we did here, because some restaurants may want to get very, very granular with the sections within a menu category. So what we did here was we included a hierarchy where you can access your existing sections, but then also build new sections on top of that, and then also subsections underneath that as well. Again, this is really for added flexibility. We have a lot of restaurant customers out there that may want to configure things very, very specific within a menu category, and we offer that flexibility, but we've updated the UI to make it more approachable. So as they're going through and looking at it, they can see, okay, well, this section is its own section and connects to this one. And then as you expand things, you can see subsections underneath. So I would encourage everybody to go through and look at that sections part of V3 of the new back of house and get familiar with it. It's really, really cool, the flexibility that we offer with that. And as I mentioned before, additional charges. So all of our existing functionality that we have, so if you wanted to configure an additional charge for this menu category, you can do so at the category level, at the section level, at the item level, and at the side level. And throughout the back of house, we included this inline add new option. So we're not having it somewhere else, right? We wanted to make this easier for kind of the user's eye to be able to say, okay, well, I want to add something new when I'm really configuring things at a deep level. And do that directly within kind of the body of the modal here. So we have that capability where they can add new directly here, and you'll see that across the board for a lot of other sections of the back of house. So that pretty much covers the menu category section of the back of house, which again, this is kind of the end result of everything else that you build, but it's the most critical piece. And we're really, really happy with how this came out and some of the initial feedback that we have. But let's jump into modifiers. So the next section here is for wanting to build out modifiers. And there's a little bit of a method to the madness here as far as the sort order of these subtabs. We obviously wanted menu configuration or menu categories to be at that top level, right? Because that's where folks want to be able to see the end result of their menu. But as we dive down this way, from left to right, we wanted to really make this in an order that would encourage a proper kind of menu build process for an end user to really start with the most content first. And in a typical menu, modifiers is you're going to have more modifiers than a lot of things, right? Depending on the vertical, obviously those things can change, but typically you have more of those. So we wanted to make that the first one in line here, so users are able to create those modifiers as with the first option. So here we have the inline editing workflow. And again, this we pulled in from our existing functionality, but we wanted to modernize the design. This is where you would add a new modifier to the back of house. So you can do so by selecting the add new option. And again, it brings in the inline editor. So a user can go ahead and configure all the different the modifier name and then all of the different attributes associated to that modifier that follow that feature parity from our existing feature set. So that all is contained within here. And the user can quickly go through, add new modifiers, and start building out their modifier list. Moving forward into modifier sets, this is where we wanted to follow that same approach where it's all a uniformed workflow and be able to build in all the existing configuration for building out modifier sets, but having it right next to modifiers, because as we all know, those are very connected, right? So this is where you would go build out your new modifier set. So, which is basically a collection of modifiers. So if you had a lot of modifiers, ketchup, onion, mustard, and things like that, those might go under a sandwich toppings or burger toppings or whatnot. This is where you would build out that modifier set. So again, all of that existing functionality, you can name that modifier set any limits to it, whether it's available store-wide, whether it's a forced or required modifier, and then some of the UI button colors or whatnot that show up in the front of house. And then here from this drop-down menu is where you're able to select the modifiers in which you want to apply to that modifier set. So again, making things a lot easier, inheriting that uniformed workflow, and bringing in that inline editing across the board. We're going to skip pre-modifiers because I'm going to get into that we're going to go over that from the back of house and the front of house. So let's jump into the sales groups and parent groups. So here's where we have the ability to create new sales groups as well as parent groups and assign any sales groups to a parent group. So if you want to build it from that hierarchy, you can do so within here. Again, as you do that, that's all within inline editing. Very, very straightforward, absolute feature parity with our existing functionality. So any sales groups you already have, if you're already a Tonic customer and you're moving over to V3, those will all show up in here. But then you have the ability to create new ones directly in here as well. So getting into items, this one's great, and we'll be able to go into a little bit more functionality here because there's more that you do with items as you create them or you configure them or edit them. So for building out new items, so whether or not it's a specific sandwich or a specific cocktail or a specific entree, when you create them, you select the Add New option here. And again, inline editing, right, allows you to create that item, assign the sales group, choose the modifier set or search for that modifier set that you want to apply to it, and then enable or disable, its availability essentially to be assigned to a menu category. But what separates this and the approach that we took to make this so much easier for a user to build out these items within their menu is depending on what you're doing, the use case is there for people that say, I just want to build a menu item. I want to give it a sales group, and I want to enable it and give it a modifier set. There's not a lot of complexity to it, right? It's going to be always available. We don't need, an alternate kitchen name, or we don't really want to go through creating a description. The approach that we took here was, say, for that use case, it's fast to do it directly within inline editing. But for some of those different sections within the back of house where there's multiple attributes, underneath the actions column across the board, you'll see a uniform symbol right here with these 3 dots and a plus. And what this represents is more of advanced configuration. So all of that functionality that we have within Tonic, where you can really, really customize things at a detailed level, that is how you access that. So if we were to look at one of these existing items, here's just kind of the generic, more basic item information that you can quickly add. But if I wanted to access more of that detailed functionality, that uniformed and responsive modal is displayed. So this is where you can really go in and configure, like I mentioned, alternate names. So if you wanted to display a little bit differently in the kitchen, right? Or if you wanted to, add a barcode to it, if you wanted to upload imagery to it, right, to be able to show up in the front of house or in online ordering. Any additional options like nutritional information, availability, if you want to add it to, so it shows up on the 86 availability list in the front of house if it's not available. And then, of course, being able to apply any points that you can earn or points needed to redeem this item if you're using our loyalty functionality. So it's important to, as you go through the back of house, whenever you see this option, this is where you access some of that advanced functionality. And you'll see it under items as well as some other areas within the back of house. Moving into combo groups. So to be able to create a combo group, which is our existing functionality, we have that again with inline editing. And you can create a new combo group by selecting Add New. And it's we brought in all that existing functionality, and we wanted to just make it a lot easier and more approachable for a user to say, okay, I want to build a combo group, burgers with fries, for example, and what options come with that combo group. So you can build that group in here, and then as you start to configure and customize combo items, you have this separate section where you can build out the actual group itself. So again, we have this drop-down option where you can find all those options underneath here, be able to search for them, etc. And then the last section here is rules. So underneath rules, we brought in all of our existing rules. So be happy to hear we were bringing all of those in, and eventually we're going to be adding some new ones as well. But this is where you would be able to manage, edit, create new rules. So for example, a lot of folks, what we call the BOGO rule, buy one, get one rule, right? Or X for Y rule. To be able to access these existing rules and configure them, you select the Add New option, and then it introduces that responsive modal. And so what we did here is we created this to be each rule to be in its own subtab. And I'll just also call out a very small enhancement, kind of really goes to the modernization. But as you click around subtabs, you'll see kind of how things fly in a little bit from the right to the left to the right. Those are those little things, right? Those little things that really go a long way that we wanted to incorporate in the overall design. So I thought I'd mention that. But this is where you would go create or edit any existing rules. This demo site that we have doesn't have any existing rules on it, but we've added everything within the subtabs, within these subtabs here for rules, where you can configure each one of those attributes. For that BOGO or X for Y, default item rules, default percentage item rules, and then any required sales group item rules that you may have configured. So you would do all that through this modal, which is the same modal that exists when you go to edit a sales group. But again, with this kind of uniformed workflow, you'll be able to see all of your rules in one page. You'll be able to see everything here. You can filter, you can leverage the type ahead search to find the thing that you're looking to edit as fast as possible. And we did that kind of uniformed across the board with menu configuration. So that covers menu. And before we get into pre-modifiers, I'm going to save that one for the last one so we can load up the front of house. The next thing I want to jump into is the report section. I really want to share with everybody some of the great enhancements and some of the visual updates that we've made for reports. So to access reports, at the top line here, select the reports button. And here what we've done is we've obviously updated the visuals for all of the reports within the Tonic back of house. And we wanted to make this easier for an end user to be able to get to the report that they need to access, or the one that they access on a daily, weekly, maybe even hourly basis, right? And be able to allow them to find and get it faster. So what we did here was we updated the UI with the left-hand navigation. So all of the reports we've categorized underneath the respective categories. So sales reports exist under a sales category. Any reports specific to modifiers, payments, security, all those things are categorized underneath this hierarchy in this new category view that we have here. And we kept sales at the top, right? Because getting those sales information, running those sales reports, whether or not it's a sales summary, daily summary, or some of the existing attributes underneath that, those are the more common ones. So we wanted to add those here. So looking at like a sales summary, for example, and we'll try to find a report here that has some data. We introduce, when you select a report, one of the things that we wanted to optimize, and I mentioned it before, was allowing the user to get to the data as fast as possible. So when you select a report to generate, we took all of our filtering options that we have, and within this first pop-up or modal, we have the ability to select, the more critical filtering options, which of course is date, right? I want to be able to see this report by which date. And, today, week to date, month to date, all those things that we currently support, custom dates, last batch close date, things like that. You can define here, choose that date, and then even get more downstream and filter by time. But each report has a lot more filters, right? Some reports have, filtering by employees. Some have filtering by, other attributes that might be applicable to that report. But that takes a long time, right? To be able to select all that as you're going through just to generate the report. And we wanted to put those somewhere else to optimize the user experience. And I'll show you where we put those to optimize that. But let's go ahead and run a sales summary here. And let's just choose a larger date. So hopefully we can pull some data. So let's go back, we'll go back a while here. We'll go back a few months. And then, let's go from March to, let's call it, we'll call it today, the 16th. And then you can also add this to a favorite, which I'll touch on in a minute, but you can do that within the modal here as well. So as you select the generate report option, I selected a very large date range here, so it's going to go back and pull a lot of data, or scan through to bring up a lot of data. But I'm so happy with this, and I think you're all going to be very happy with this as well, with this new approach and the visuals that we implemented here. We spent a lot of time, our UI UX design team, the product team, working with other teams to really, really hone in on this, because we wanted this to really showcase and show some great visibility into data, of course, because that's what folks are looking to get, but also the visuals that represent that data. So as I generate that sales summary report, you'll see here we've consolidated a lot of the data as well as some of the visual widgets, like this pie chart that separates, your sales percentages by sales group. We've separated these within containers. So your eye kind of goes to the certain areas a lot faster that contain the data that most customers are looking to get quickly. And then if you're looking to get more granular data, we have these, what we call accordions, or accordions functionality within a container. So you can expand these accordions, get to that tax information, right? And, any sort of other information, if you wanted to look at, payments by order type for this report, or any discount rates or other income. So, if you have dual pricing, getting some of that dual pricing revenue information, that's all easily accessible directly within this report itself, but it maintains that really great visual. But then after reports ran, if you wanted to do more things, like I mentioned earlier, filtering, right? Some reports have additional filtering capabilities. This specific report doesn't, and I'll show you some reports that do. But if you wanted to access some of those, some of that functionality post generation, you can do so in the top bar here. So whether or not you wanted to mark this as a favorite, whether or not you wanted to refresh this report, right? Which I'll get into on the favorite screen. Whether or not you wanted to download or export this or download this report, whether or not you wanted to email this report, print it out or remove it, or delete the report as far as historical reports that you ran. You can all do that here. but you can also collapse your reports. So if you've just gone through and you've ran like 5 different reports, you're doing payroll, or you want to run 5 of the different reports we have, and there gets a lot on the screen, you can really consolidate things here by expanding and collapsing on the right hand column here. So we also included the ability to filter these reports. So if you do have a lot of favorite reports, or a lot of reports that are showing from your historical, from running them historically, you can filter them. So I got a lot of reports on here. I just want to see the sales reports, right? Those I access a lot. But back to the favorites piece. So what we wanted to do here was, some reports are ran, like I mentioned, on a weekly, daily, basis, and some even more than that, right? Or if it's payroll, run, bi-weekly or monthly, however the restaurant wants to use it. We wanted to introduce the ability to mark a report as a favorite. So for example, if this is a report that you run every single day and you're running it manually, you can select it as a favorite report. And when you do that, it's going to bring that report over, and it will always be here on your favorites list unless you remove it from your favorites list. So for example, if the sales summary, we run that every single day, right? And we want to do this, and we want to do it every single day at a certain time. But our initial date range filter is just for today. The user doesn't have to go through and actually generate that report every time. They could just go to the report section. It'll immediately land them on the favorites page, and they can see some of those attributes that they configured underneath here. And then they can just simply refresh that report. And then it'll auto expand it, show it. So that's all they have to do if it's a common report that they ran all the time. You can also refresh all the reports in your favorites list in one button click by selecting the refresh option here. So that covers a little bit about some of the UI, UX, or user interface or user experience enhancements that we made for reporting. As we start to get into additional reports, like if we wanted to look at items sold by, let's run this and see if we can look at some of that advanced filtering. So we'll go in here quickly and just maybe we'll do as long. It didn't really take that long at all. So we'll go ahead and do May 1st to today for that filter. And then let's just go ahead and generate the report here. And hopefully we get some data that populates. And once we get that data, yep, we got some data here at the item level here. So you'll see it looks a little bit different for this report. All of our existing reports we have in here. So we brought all those over to V3, and we've updated their design to match kind of the overall uniformability that we built in with our new back of house. But for filtering, you can select this filter option right here because there's additional filters for reports. And this is where we've put some of that additional filtering as opposed to before, where it was all on that initial modal. And this allows the user, like I mentioned, to be able to get the data they need as soon as possible. And then if they wanted to get granular, they could access that filter option. And from here, for this report, filter by sales or parent group and sales group, and really get granular with that. Apply that filter, and then of course from there they can mark it as a favorite, so they don't have to do all that again, because once it's marked as a favorite, it's saved. All they got to do is come in here and refresh it anytime they want more data. So that covers reports. And next we're going to jump into staff and labor, and I may have forgotten to mention that in the very beginning, but that's something I definitely want to cover. But we'll probably cover that one pretty quickly, and then we'll get to pre-modifiers. To access the staff and labor section of V3, select on configuration. And underneath, you'll see a labor column here. This is where you access all your staff or employees, and then create, edit those users, and then also add or edit existing roles. So the landing page by default lands on the staff page. So again, uniformability, bringing in this concept of inline editing. This is where you want to create a new staff member. You'd enter their information here, their front of house PIN, wages. We have role assignments in line within this modal, any alerts that they may have, and whether or not they're enabled or disabled. But as we saw underneath items, as well as some other sections, you see that advanced option here, right? We have some great functionality and within staff to be able to really get granular with information you want to configure. Things like, their email address, obviously, if they need back of house access, their address for, payroll or whatnot, any options that they may have, compensation information that goes a little bit beyond wage if it's if it's role-based wages, things like that. And you'll have those all underneath this accordion view here to be able to configure that. But going back to what I mentioned before, the approach here was we wanted to separate those two workflows. So if folks are not interested in creating all that granular functionality, they don't have to. They don't have to go through it. They can just create them in line, save it, and move on to the next. It really is going to increase or decrease, I should say, the menu time build if they're wanting to build it from that perspective. Also within here, and you'll see this throughout other areas of the back of house as well, especially pre-modifiers when we cover it. Again, the approach is to look at things from a standpoint of, hey, what do people want to do a lot? What are things that people do often when it comes to menu maintenance? And one of those things are assigning employees to roles, right? Or bringing in new employees and giving them one role, multiple roles. So we support and then alerts as well, or enabling and disabling them. Those are things that happen a lot, right? This user, may no longer work there, so they want to disable them. They want to add a new alert because this user wants to get a little bit more information, whether it's a server or a bartender or whatnot, or it's somebody that switched roles, got a promotion, now they're a manager, right? Instead of having to click on edit and go into the edit screen and go deep within any sort of those advanced functionality, we have inline editing. So if you wanted to change the role for this user here, you could select this. You could search for any one of the roles and select it, and you're done. You don't have to go through that process of opening up different screens to be able to do those things that our customers do often. Same thing goes for alerts. You want to enable alerts for this user. You can go through and find all of the existing alerts that we have and do it directly within inline editing. And then, of course, enable and disable. You can do that all within here. So that's the staff page, some of the updates that we made there. And then moving over to roles, we have all of our roles listed here. And you can create a new role by selecting Add New, again, directly inline. For editing, you can the top level functionality. So the name of the role, role wage, the tip weight, any of the groups, whether or not it's front of house role, back of house role, job title, wait staff, all that existing functionality we brought over. But then on the roles, if you wanted to configure permissions, let's say, right, you wanted to really get granular and configure, the permissions for each one of those roles, that's done under the action column when you see this lock icon. So when you select the lock icon, that introduces the responsive modal, and here's where you can access all of the existing permissions. So, and then get granular for specific permissions that live inside those permission sets. So if, for example, we wanted to do some more detailed configuration around front of house payment permissions, and we wanted to really define it by the type for this role, here's where you'd be able to select this option. And from here, you could go through and select all. So it'll automatically bring all of these sub permissions as part of this permission set and enable them, which it does by default when you enable things. But also you're able to kind of customize, right? If you want to get really granular with roles and their permissioning in the front of house or back of house, you can do all that within here. So that pretty much covers menu configuration. And next, we are going to move on to pre-modifiers. So this one I am super stoked to show you guys. We're going to go through configuring pre-modifiers, and then we're also going to show how they relate in the front of house and to be able to add pre-modifiers to an item. So to access pre-modifiers, select configuration at the top nav here, and underneath the menu column, choose pre-modifiers. So here, following kind of the uniformed approach that we have to the new backup house, you'll see all your pre-modifier groups in line here. And before I get into the creating and editing of a pre-modifier group and the pre-modifiers, I wanted to speak a little bit on the approach with this, because one of the reasons why we're so excited for this is that the overall design of pre-modifiers, with the research that we did and looking at all the different scenarios, it was important to really look at pre-modifiers from a configuration level as something that was very non-linear. And what I mean by that is something that it's not specific to like a modifier prefix, right? Because in a lot of cases, some pre-modifiers or, sub-modifiers, whatever you may want to call them, could be a suffix that could come afterwards, right? Like on the side, things like that. So that's one thing. But the other thing is there's an opportunity with this feature to be able to solve for multiple issues across multiple verticals. And one of those verticals that is always challenging when building a menu that's easy to build, has all the capability, all the different modifications you can add to an item, One of those verticals is pizza. A lot of us know that, right? Building out a pizza menu with all the customizations can be difficult in a lot of ways. And a lot of systems don't really account for a seamless, elegant way to do that. So that went into the mindset and the approach of Premodifiers. So what you see here is Premodifier groups all listed in order. And I have some examples here. So I mentioned pizza, right? Cocktail pre-mod. So whether somebody wants a splash of something, right? It might not be an extra. They might want to call it a splash of something. So that way the bartender understands, right? And there's a lot of other things, for bartenders and in bar environments where they may want to call a pre-modifier different than maybe a full service or a QSR type environment. So some examples of how you can create those pre-modifier groups kind of in a non-linear way underneath here. And it'll make sense as I go through and we'll look at the details of pre-mods, how they apply to those other verticals. So let's go ahead and edit one of the most common pre-modifiers, right? Which is, the no add extra light on the side, right? That's kind of the typical use case. And we really, really elegantly solve for that problem with pre-modifiers and Tonic. So I already have that pre-modifier group created, and I'll come back to this screen and we'll jump into some of the assignment and be able to assign those to other layers of hierarchy within the menu. But let's go ahead and edit this pre-modifier here. So once you select edit, or if you're adding a new one, you're going to be able to see all of the attributes, all of the components when building a pre-modifier group within this modal. Also the pre-modifiers underneath it. So again, in this non-linear type of approach, we wanted to allow customers, merchants to be able to create a pre-modifier group named anything they want. So I mentioned before pizza, right? If you wanted to create a group for left half, right half, like northwest corner, slice one, right? Depending on how custom the merchant or the restaurant wants to be able to allow their customers or their patrons to order pizza, they could do that by creating multiple pre-modifier groups all the way down to that granular level. So here's where you would create that group. And then after you create that group, now it's time to create the pre-modifiers that live underneath that group. And so this is where you can add those additional pre-modifiers that are associated with the group. And there's a lot of components in here that dynamically change pricing and all those other things that you want to do. And we'll cover each one of those pricing types as we go through. But in this case, for demo purposes, we're using that common approach, right? The add extra light no on the side. So after I create that group name, I can come in here and I can start adding additional pre-modifiers to that pre-modifier group. So and to do that, I select this add new option. And when I select the add new option, that's going to bring in, again, the inline editing that you see across the board in the back of house. So I can create that new pre-modifier for that group itself. But we already have all of our pre-modifier groups here. I wanted to save us time in the demo so we can kind of see how everything's configured. But in this case, I create the add extra light no on the side that represents the group. And from here, we have a lot of granular configuration a user could configure if they wanted to. So, this pre-modifier, this top one is add. So if we wanted to edit this, let's say we wanted maybe add to be, something different for online ordering name. Where that really applies would be something like on the side, right? You may want that to show up in the kitchen as OTS or for the server as OTS to save real estate on the front of house or in online ordering. But obviously for kitchen printing. But for online ordering, you may want to spell it all out, right? Because a patron may not know what OTS means. So you can configure that here. And then as I mentioned earlier, not everything is a prefix. Some things can be a suffix, not just for this pre-modifier group name, but for pizza, right? For anything. You may want that thing to print in the kitchen, before the modifier or after the modifier. So we have the ability for a user to select whether or not they want that to display, as pre or post, a prefix or suffix, in other words. Whether or not they want this pre-modifier to be available for online ordering, right? Depending on the scenario, and there's a lot of different scenarios where that could be applicable. There could be only a specific pre-modifier, whether it's, a lot of extra cheese on a pizza or something. I mean, there's so many scenarios you can figure out. But if you don't want that to be applicable for online ordering, you can say that I don't want this available for online ordering. So, another example that would be maybe something that is really specific, again, in that nonlinear approach that we built it, where, there's maybe something only available in store because maybe it doesn't package properly, right? Because it's like overflowing or whatnot, right? Like a sundae, things like that. You can say, okay, well, that's only available in store, right? So you can select that. And as far as the pricing type, this is the most critical component of building each one of the pre-modifiers. And as we were going through and building this out, the approach was, and the mindset was, thinking of all the different variable pricing types that you may want to be able to have the system respond to based on that action of that pre-modifier. And there's a lot of scenarios, right? You can think of all the different scenarios, but it really consolidated down really into these 5 kind of categories. And a lot of it is kind of similar in the approach to like discounting, for example, right? If you're creating a discount, you have different kind of methods, whether it's a forced amount, a percentage-based discount, and all those things that Tonic has that you can configure. Wanted to make that approach kind of similar to that. And they're all applicable. So as you're creating each one of those pre-modifiers underneath the group, you can define that pricing and how it works based on whatever modifier that you're adding that pre-modifier to. So the first option here that you're able to select is no pricing variation, right? So that's good for, like if you have ketchup, for example, right? You wanted to add ketchup. Typically that doesn't come with a price. So you would select, a no pricing for that. The second option that we have here, this basically just inherits the existing modifier price, right? So if you have a modifier like, there's a lot of premium modifiers like avocado, guacamole, bacon that might have, $2 or $3 or $1.50, whatever. And that's configured at the modifier level. We'll just bring that over, inherit that, right? A good example of that might be like a BYOB, but the last B stands for burger, right? Build your own burger type place. A lot of customers have that, right? So many different toppings, and some are, predefined items, but you might want to just inherit that modifier pricing for a build your own burger type item. The second one here, again, going back to that similar logic that definitely applies, is the concept of a forced amount. Right? So a use case for that, as opposed to inheriting the modifier price, is let's say you have a specialty item. And if you want to add something, add a modifier or have extra of that modifier, but you always just want it to be the same price because there's like that item price is always just going to be the same. And if you order that item, you don't have to pay extra for it. It kind of leverages that forced price concept, kind of like discounts, right? Which are definitely completely different features, but the action is relatable, right? When it comes to this. The fourth option, is percentage. So this really applies, and I have it configured here. I'll go ahead and exit out of here. I have it configured for light. So let's go through that use case, right? If where you have a sandwich or a burger or whatnot that comes with something, right? Or you want to add, or you have the option to add bacon, and bacon's $3, right? And you're going to bring that pricing in. But because for whatever, if they want light baking because it's 4 strips to 2 strips, right? You want to get that granular with things. You can say, well, if they choose light bacon or maybe avocado or guacamole, I want to cut that price in half. I want it to be half the price because they're not ordering, the full amount of that premium modifier. So you could mark that as 50% and it would pull that 50% off that modifier price. And then the fifth and final option, which is the most common option that you see across the board a lot, is this is just a simple multiplier, right? So this really applies. I'll go ahead and edit the second one here for extra, right? So if you are bringing in that charge of extra bacon, right, or extra avocado, and you just say, or avocado, has $2 on that modifier, and you say, okay, well, if they want extra, I want to charge 2, right? You would just add 2 in here as a multiplier. So it'll just multiply that price. And you see that in a lot of kind of pre-modifiers with other systems out there, but other systems don't have the level of granularity that we have, right? That we're able to define it that way by the other 4 options to really allow users to be able to create their pre-modifiers and have that pricing reflect in any way that they want it to reflect. This one also really goes back to what I was saying before in that kind of cross-vertical capabilities that we have for things like pizza or cocktails, right? So if you think about pizza, right? And if you have a left half and a right half pre-modifier group, a lot of times there's kind of sub layers of pre-modifiers, right? Almost like a pre-modifier in a sense. Or there's just more functionality that's needed. Cheese is a perfect example, right? Most places have multiple options. So there's, extra cheese, double cheese, triple cheese, maybe even something beyond that, right? Depending on kind of what the restaurant wants to offer. The multiplier, that's the times 2, times 3, times 4. So you could create a pre-mod for extra, double, triple, quadruple, whatever it is. And you'll be able to just use that in a separate pre-modifier and then have that pricing reflect accordingly. Or use any one of the existing pricing types. So that's how you build out pre-modifiers underneath a pre-modifier group. Again, a really non-linear approach, because it's important to apply this across the board to many different verticals. And we can certainly account for that with this feature in Tonic. So once you have your pre-modifier group created, the next step is to apply that so it's active in the front of house. And how you do that is you tie the pre-modifier group to a modifier set. That's where you'd want to do it. So for example, pre-modifier group add extra light no on the side. We'd want to associate that to a modifier set. So you can do that in this window all in one place within this modal, which is what we wanted to do. So that way when a user creates this, they don't have to go to another screen to kind of finalize that assignment of the pre-modifier group. So they can select this option up here, and they can search for a modifier set and then select the modifier set in which they want to apply it to. So here you'll see we have burger toppings, right? We want to apply this pre-modifier set to burger toppings. So I can do that directly within here and then save it all in one kind of fell swoop here. I don't have to go to modifier sets and configure it there. But again, the approach across our back of house is that we also have inline editing, right? And we want to take advantage of that in every scenario where that makes sense. And so we also included inline editing for that assignment. So, use case for that or a real world kind of situation is, you have a pre-modifier group, but you created a new item and a new modifier set. Call it, I'm not sure. There's other, sandwich modifiers that you might have, like cheeses, meats, and things like that. But you just wanted to apply this pre-modifier group to a new modifier set. You could just do it right here by selecting inline editing, and you have that same window. So I don't have to go inside of that and see all of the attributes underneath each pre-modifier group. I can do it directly within here. So that's how you configure pre-modifiers. That's a little bit around, a little kind of bit behind the scenes around the logic and why we're so excited to showcase this feature and the opportunities it's going to give everybody for demoing this and being able to solve for so many different problems across so many different verticals. So let's jump into the front of house and you'll see how it all kind of shows up after you create them. So I'm going to minimize my screen here and I'm going to load up the Tonic front of house application. So bear with me for a moment here. So we're going to go ahead and load up Tonic. And as this loads, I'm just going to walk through a very, very simple order process utilizing one of the items that has that burger toppings modifier group. So after you log in here, we're just going to create a new order and we'll just do it with a quick sale. So let's just go ahead and create a quick sale. And as you saw, I configured no add extra light on the side to the burger toppings modifier set, which is applicable to an item that I have in here called All-Star Burger, right? So we have our pre-modifiers, they're associated to our modifier set, and we have the item that modifier set is associated to. That hierarchy has all been built out, and we're ready to go ahead and place the order. So when you select the item to add to a new order, this modifier set that I have configured right now is not required. If it's required, it will pop up immediately. But typically, pre-modifiers are not, typically required. They're going to be more optional. So using all of our existing functionality, if I wanted to edit that information, I would select the item from the order list here. I would choose burger toppings. This is the modifier set. And here is where we introduce the ability to quickly add pre-modifiers to any one of those modifiers. And a couple things with this screen, just so we're kind of aware, because this solves for another really large problem that, depending on the scalability of pre-modifiers and how many there are, there's room for server error a lot of times, right? Or cashier error when they're building this out. A very complex order, multiple people, multiple guests on an order. We wanted to include this preview section within this modal, so there can be a confirmation from the end user's perspective, right? A server, a cashier can look at everything they've done as far as how complex it is before they apply it, to save them from having to go back and edit things, or maybe mistakenly sending it to the kitchen with the wrong information on it. I think we've all been there, right? We all have a, place an order, and whenever there's a lot of things like that, a lot of times it can kind of get messed up. And a lot of times that has to do with the order entry side of things. So we've included this preview option to just make it so much easier for a server, a cashier, to be able to confirm these things. But let's go ahead and kind of showcase how it works for selecting and adding each one of those pre-modifiers as well as its associated modifier. So all the pre-modifiers that we have as part of our group are here on the left. And you are able to select these, which will showcase all the modifiers, and it gives it that prefix, or in some cases, depending on the printout and the configuration, whether or not it's a suffix or it's printed post or displayed post within order entry. A user can come through here and say, okay, well, I want the all-star burger, and I want to add barbecue sauce, and we have a $1 forced amount charge for that when you use add, so it adds that $1, and again, it gives you that preview here. And I want, light, let's call it light mustard, and we'll say no onions. So as you're building that in here, you can see that everything is showing up in the preview. Again, that confirmation, making sure that we're not making mistakes, right? When we're sending a complex order with a lot of pre-modifiers to the kitchen. And then the other thing that I think is really important to kind of go over with this is we introduced multi-select within here, which it's just faster order entry, right? So whether or not if you do make one of those mistakes, or you want to change up something that you did, or maybe the customer changes their mind, it's a quick service environment and they change their mind right away, and you've already put all this into preview, but you haven't hit apply. We introduced multi-select. So if you're under no, you can select onions, and you can, click it on, turn, enable it or disable it essentially. And you can do that across all the pre-modifiers here. So let's say I added, this was the order. I want an all-star burger, light mustard with added barbecue sauce, which, has an extra $1 charge, and no onions. You confirm that, you select apply, and it automatically brings that information in here. For barbecue sauce, it adds the $1. It added it to the order. And the end user, the server, bartender is ready to commit that order, and they can do so by selecting send. So that's how pre-modifiers works in the front of house. We've optimized that workflow. We've solved for problems with any potential mistake orders that are being configured depending on that complexity. And we're really excited to get this in the product. And moving forward, expect some additional features and some additional functionality around pre-modifiers as we continue to evolve a lot of this functionality. So thank you very much, and talk to you next time.
Great stuff. Thank you, Tony. It's exciting to see the modern design and streamlined functionality of the new back of house. After spending some time with it, I truly believe we're offering a best-in-class experience, enabling partners to quickly build their menu using the bulk uploader, followed by an intuitive and simplified interface for fine-tuning. Now Katie will take us through some new front-of-the-house functionality. Katie?
All right, so we'll go ahead and start with the split checks today. I want to go over this first because everything else kind of leads into that. So first off, on the front of house, we went ahead and still created the first logon screen here, which I will be logging in as a manager for this demo. But in this scenario, we're going to go ahead and do a normal order here. I'm going to go ahead and click dine in. This brings up my table layout here for each individual area. I'm going to go ahead and click the table that I choose to start with. And instead of enter seats, now we have enter guests. So you can go ahead, if there's 3 people at the table, you can choose 3 for whatever you need. But this is the enter guest button here. Once you select enter, the opening ticket does show up. On your left-hand side of your screen, you're going to have them all individually laid out now instead of it just being one individual ticket. But now you can actually have all of your guests separated with these lines here. A couple of things before we get into it. You can select the guests by highlighting them on the order ticket, or you can use these over here as well. These buttons that have been on the right-hand side of the screen, we can go ahead and add a guest from this button as well. And then we can also select all, which select all gives us the availability to put one thing on the menu on all the tickets. So for this example, I'm actually going to hit select all. So it is highlighted, and I'm going to hit a soda. So now you see that a soda has hit every single person on this list. Once we go ahead and fill our ticket, which I'll go ahead and put a couple things on each individual one, put chicken strips here. I'm going to use the guest numerical bar up here, and I'll put mozzarella sticks here. And we'll put a salad here just so we have the sake of having a few more options on the order ticket. I went ahead and hit send on here. So this now is an active table. Everything is sent over to the kitchen, and I want to go ahead and open back up my ticket. So the split checks is actually what we're going to go into next. After everything is sent off, we're going to go ahead and go to the menu button up in the top corner. We also call it a hamburger button. So we can go ahead and select this and hit split. And this is what our new modal shows. We have 3 options up top here, and we have some new options on the bottom. Individually, I like to go through these and put on here that this right here has a split selected guest to 1 receipt. So instead of selecting the guest from this side of things, we can actually select the guest up here as well, just like the other screen. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight check 1 and check 2. And if I go ahead and select 1 and 2, I'm telling this from this example here that I want to put these 2 onto 1 receipt. So this is going to leave 3, 4, and 5 on this ticket, and the 1 and 2 are going to be split. Once this is selected, because these are selectable to interchange them, you can go ahead and hit split, which will split it off to a new check but remain the entire table active. You can hit split and print, which will actually split them off but also print the ticket automatically. And then you can hit split and pay, which means that if you already have their method of payment, you can go ahead and activate that. You have their cards in hand, they're ready to go. We can go ahead and split them off onto 1 check and pay it right away, right at this screen. So I'm going to go ahead and just for an example, I'm going to go ahead and hit 1 and 2 and putting them on 1 ticket, and I'm going to hit split. I go back into the ticket, and now I do have 2 separate tickets. I have the one that has 4, 5, or 3, 4, and 5, and I do have the one that has the 2 on there. At this level, I want to go ahead and I'm going to merge them back together so that way I can keep my same table. I'm going to go ahead and hit merge and drop back to where my other order was, which I believe was here. Okay, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 still available. If I want to go ahead and split it differently, I'm going to go ahead and hit split. This right here gives me split select guests to separate receipts. So 1 and 2 want to cash out, they're ready to go, but 3, 4, and 5 want to stay at the table and they are paying separately. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 1 and 2 up here, and I can select this and I hit split, which will go ahead and split them into separate receipts. Again, if I want to split and print or split and pay, those are my options as well. The last and final option that I have on here is split all guests to separate receipts. This is a time saver for every server, because if everybody's ready to go and everyone is separate, all you have to do is select this option over here. And instead of hitting split, you can hit split and print if everybody's ready for receipts, or if everybody gives you their cards at the same time, which does happen in a large amount of parties and stuff like that, you can go ahead and hit split and pay and start actually cashing out those tickets. All right, so for this demo, I'm going to go ahead and show the quick and easy way of how to create a tab. This is very short and to the point. I am going to go ahead and log into my front of house, and under my dine-in screen, if I want to go ahead and put in an order, I can go ahead and click the table that I want, enter the guests that I have. I have 2 guests at this table, but for right now, they're not split. They are actually on the same ticket until further notice. And they want to start ordering their foods and stuff like that. I have 2 options. I can go ahead and select tab now, which starts the tab, or I can go ahead and add food first. So if I do want to add a salad on the soda, then I can go ahead and add that on there first. And then hit tab, which is this quick button on this front-facing screen on the order ticket, and I can go ahead and swipe the card and start the tab there. In previous times, it would be under pay, selecting tab, and this was the old way of doing it, which is still available. If this is easier for some, but we did make it so it's a lot faster for servers to go ahead and start that tab, hand that card back, and continue the order. And then the last one is going to be tips. So entering tips on the front of house is made simpler as well. We can go ahead and I'm going to log in on the front of house. If these are my orders here, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to enter my tips. I'm going to hit batch and tips. At this time, I do only have 1 order on here that has a card order on here for entering actual tips on a card. So if I select this here and I enter my tip up here, I can go ahead and finish this update. And instead of having to back out and reset everything to come back into my other orders, because it would normally have kicked me out, now we have these arrows down here. So if I had multiple orders that had cards on them that I had to go ahead and put orders in, or tips in, then I can go ahead and use this here. At this time, I do have an error just because I don't have a card machine set up. But tips are a lot easier now. They're going to be located right off of this batch orders, and then again navigating through the bottom.
Thank you, Katie. Admittedly, one concern that stood out previously was the speed of fast bar transactions. Starting a tab with EMV involved too many steps, and bartenders were burdened with excessive screen taps. With our new functionality, we've streamlined these workflows, delivering the fast bar and nightclub experience as it should be. This allows bartenders to spend time with their guests rather than at the point of sale station. Moving on. One challenge we consistently heard from our partners was around the end of day closing process. Specific issues were creating confusion for operators, often preventing them from closing the day properly and resulting in support calls frequently late at night or in the early hours of the morning. To address this, we introduced one of my favorite enhancements to the new front of house experience, the Tonic Closing Wizard. Jason will now take us through the process. Jason?
Welcome, I'm Jason Constantine, and today we'll be going over Tonic's Closing Wizard. The Closing Wizard incorporates all the steps of closing the store, which comes down to cash management with users, closing out your EMV readers, and then finally closing the store. Prior to this, as I log into the front of the house, this was multiple steps, as I mentioned earlier. You had to have your users cashed out. This is part of the process. You had to make sure your cash drawers were all cashed out. Next, before you had to close the store, you would have to make sure your EMV devices were all closed as well. And the final step to doing so to get your store closed would hit the close store. This incorporates steps into one option so less mistakes occur. To get started with the Closing Wizard, we just now have to hit Close Store. As mentioned previously, All our options are now in one place, and they go in the order from top left to right in which way you need to do so to properly close the store. This eliminates mistakes and makes sure that you're following the proper process from A to Z to make sure you close the store. As you can see, adjust tips, it's letting us know we have one tip that needs to be adjusted. One payment has not been tip adjusted. Would you like to adjust tips? You can choose many of the options here below. Today, we're going to hit all and enter our tip. And hit update. Once your tips are adjusted, you can move on to the next step, cash management. As you can see here, we have one step that needs to be done. Click on cash management and it will let you know one user has not been cashed out, or if you have cash drawers, because this is where you would be cashing out your cash drawers as well, it will let you know if you have a cash drawer that needs to be cashed out. We'll click on users since that's what we need to do. It will list all users that need to be cashed out. Click on William the waiter and let's cash him out. Once all the cash outs are completed, the users box will turn gray. Next step is our EMV. In this example, all our EMV terminals are already closed. If they weren't, all I would have to do to close all of them is hit close all. Or I can select them individually and hit close. If I have a problem with one of them closing, but I know it's secure and everything is balanced, I can force that terminal as well from here. Next step after all this is green, which we all have in this case as well, click on Close Store. It lets you know the store is open. We have all our check marks in place. Now it's, would you like to close the store? Click on Close Store. This is actually a setting in the system. If you would like to know if there's staff that are still clocked in the system, and you can actually clock them all out from here. We'll hit no for today. What pops up here we like to refer to as the manager's red book, the message. How was the day? What happened? Any problems? Good news, bad news? It's a busy night. Click enter. We'll proceed the process and close the store. Once closed, you'll get this message. You'll have your gift card settlement. You'll have your credit card settlement, and it will let you know your store is closed. Click OK. You can click on batch, and now close store is grayed out. You also have the message at the bottom that the store is closed.
Thank you, Jason. I understand we provided a lot of information, but we felt it was important to showcase the massive number of improvements we're delivering in the Tonic experience for partners and your customers. There's much more to come in the months ahead, and we're prioritizing development that aligns with our VAR-focused model. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.